if you've seen recently, everybody's been saying Donald Trump won by a landslide. This is a mandate. This is a mandate, and this is exactly why everybody needs to listen to MAGA, because we crushed the Democrats. We crushed liberalism. In fact, we crushed it so much that people like Robert, they're going to go around and tell you to get lost. Get out of here. You're done, people. Zip it. We don't need to hear from you anymore. Your side is dead. You no longer exist because we've crushed you. Well, I don't know about that. I don't think they did crush, because if you look at this map here, Donald Trump, as the votes continue to come in, right now sits as the third lowest popular vote total win in the history of this country. It might even go lower than that as the votes come in. He got less than 50% of the vote total. So what does that mean? That means the majority of people did not vote for Donald Trump. The majority of people voted for either Kamala Harris, which made up the majority of that, or they did not vote for Donald Trump. They voted for somebody else. So the mandate that you guys speak of, the only mandate that I see right now is the ones between Donald Trump and Elon Musk palling around with each other all the time. That's the only mandate that I see. Other than that, this isn't even close to a mandate. And I want to express to anybody out there that's worried about the future, that feels like that we got destroyed so badly that there's no coming back from this. The only reason why they may be no coming back from this is because we have an administration that may make sure that we may never come back from this. And we hope that that does not happen. But if we are strong enough, and all the judges that Joe Biden has appointed and is going to appoint before he leaves, that is going to stall a lot of the things that Donald Trump may want to do. The good news is that Kamala Harris, despite only having 3 months to run and getting people to know her, despite having a right-wing propaganda machine that was so loud and so strong, and that has been building, not just for the 3 months that she's been there, but for the 8+ years that Donald Trump has been around in politics. Despite that, despite Joe Biden having what I consider unfair, low approval ratings, if anybody really knew what Joe Biden did for this country, they would understand that they would say, no, Joe, don't jump out. I don't give a shit that you're old and you half the time don't even know where the fuck you're at. What you accomplished was so great and so amazing. We want more of that, but forget about that. Don't even care about interesting you in the facts on that anymore. But despite all that, she barely lost. Barely. Well, what about she got all the swing states, but some of those she barely lost. Again, despite all the things I just mentioned, barely lost. So does that mean that we're screwed forever? No. Does that mean that all the people that voted for Donald Trump are going to vote for him again in the next election? Or they're going to vote for MAGA people? Or they're going to vote in 2022 for this administration? It doesn't. And it also is going to be interesting to see how this administration does in the first year or so. What if the prices of eggs and gas don't magically go down? What if prices do start going up after all the tariffs hit? What if some of the people who voted for Donald Trump, who didn't think their mother-in-law or family members or friends were going to get deported, and then come back and say, I made a major mistake? In fact, if you saw, there were Google Trends, and it showed some of the top questions asked after the election. And one of the top questions asked was, can I change my vote? First of all, what kind of voter doesn't know you can't change your vote? First of all, Jesus. How do you not know that? But anyway, forget about that. Let's get to the good news about that. The good news is there are a lot of people, not only can I change my vote, there are people on social media, I mean, visibly on videos saying, uh-oh, I made a mistake. In Dearborn, Michigan, Trump is playing us. No, he's not playing you. He played you. Who am I talking about in Dearborn, Michigan? I'm talking about the Muslim community who voted for Donald Trump. If you go look in that particular town, in that particular county, more Muslims voted for Donald Trump than Kamala Harris because they thought he was going to be better for Palestine. What? What? How? What? Where that's really disturbing is that you would think you would be more in tune on what's happening in Palestine than the average American. You would think you would be more in tune on who was more on the side. Well, Kamala Harris didn't do anything about it. Well, first of all, Kamala Harris can't do anything about it. She was the vice president. The vice president has zero power, zero over what happens in Palestine. Well, she can go to Joe Biden. First of all, who's to say she didn't? Second of all, even if she did, she has zero power, none. Do you know the vice president might as well be like the kicker on a football team? Vice president basically sits around and does nothing. Sits around and says, oh, does that guy die? Oh, then I'm up. That's basically what they do. Or they break ties in the Senate. Maybe they're sent on a few trips here and there. That's all they are. They're the kicker of the administration. Sit on the bench until it's time to kick a field goal. Or maybe even the punter with a great offense. They're the punter on a team with a great offense who might see the field once or twice. Other than that, the vice president doesn't have a huge role. This is like stuff we learned in elementary, maybe not elementary school, but junior high school. What do you think? There was a young man who asked this question when they interviewed him. It went viral. But why do you think during the vice presidential debates, they don't ask, what are your plans and what are you going to do for the country? They don't ask the vice president that in the debates. You know why? Because they can't do anything. They can't. What are we doing? Dearborn, Michigan. You would think you'd be more in tune. But he's playing you? He's not playing you. He played you. And now you're regretting your vote. Because you know what's going to happen to Palestine? And you know what's going to happen in Gaza? You might want to turn your TV off. Or you might want to say goodbye to some of the people that you know over there. At least, listen, I'm just going by what I hear. Who is the person in charge of national relations over there now? Mike Huckabee? Have you heard Mike Huckabee's stance on this? He's very pro-Israel. Very pro-Israel. Very. So, and I will tell you, I don't take any satisfaction in knowing that innocent people are going to die. And I don't take satisfaction in kind of like rubbing it in your face. However, I don't feel sorry for you. I don't feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for the people who are going to have to go through what they're going to go through. I don't feel sorry for you because if it was that important to you, you would have done just a little bit more research, just a little. And you would have went, let's say you still didn't like the Biden administration and how they handled it. You would have said, all right, at least I'm not voting at all. I'm not voting for either one of them. But you went out and voted for Donald Trump, and he won Michigan. Can I change my vote? Nope. Can't change your vote. Sorry. That's how it goes. I'll get back to some of the comments here in a minute, but I think it might have been Carrie or JD, somebody that had mentioned this earlier, and let me know which one of you mentioned this or somebody else. We were talking about some of the misconceptions on why people voted and what was stuck in their head. Look at this. These are some of the things that people said when they were asked, did you believe that Kamala Harris supports this policy? At 83%, overwhelming majority. These are swing voters. First of all, swing voters who chose Kamala Harris believe this in 40% of the times, and swing state voters overall who believe it 66%. Okay, I'm sorry. The first column is swing state voters who chose Trump. So we're just going to stick with that because that's the most important one. Do you believe Kamala Harris supports this particular policy? Using taxpayer dollars to pay for transgender surgeries for undocumented immigrants in prison. 83% said yes. Why? Why did they believe that? Well, I mean, it's almost impossible not to believe that. I would say the number one ad that people saw during this election, the number one, if you asked anybody, if you can name just any ad, doesn't matter. Kamala Harris, your local congressman, governor, anything, doesn't matter. What's the number one ad you remember? Everyone's going to say, I remember the one where Kamala Harris was talking about giving prisoners basically free surgeries in prison, and that taxpayers are going to pay for it because Charlemagne the God on his show said, I don't want my taxpayers paying for that stuff. Now, one thing a lot of people didn't know is that that was an interview that she briefly touched on something from 6 years ago. Wasn't even something that she mentioned over the last 4 years, much less the 3 months that she was running for president. Second of all, she was talking about an existing law that is already in place and that existed during the Trump administration. So she was just speaking on the particular law that was already in existence under the Trump administration and what her views were when she was asked about it at the time. But 83% of you, Trump voters, believe that that's Kamala Harris's stance. Can't vote for that. What else? Requiring all car manufacturers in the U.S. to be electric vehicles by 2035. Great. Show me one time where Kamala Harris even mentioned that. She even came close to mentioning it. Can't show. It wasn't even on a commercial. You would think that if she said that, it would have been on one of their commercials. But maybe they said, screw it. The transgender one's just strong enough. We don't need to put it on a commercial because we already got the transgender thing. But I don't know. Maybe there's an ad I didn't see. I'm in Florida. Maybe they didn't feel like they need to run as many ads here in Florida. So maybe I didn't see it. Maybe there's another state where there was plenty of ads, where there was Kamala Harris going around saying, yep, I am requiring all cars to be manufactured, or all cars in the U.S. to be manufactured be electric vehicles. Allowing children under 18 to transition genders without informing their parents. This is absolutely insanely ridiculous. It's 77% of people think that that's true. I don't care if you didn't see a commercial. I don't even care if you didn't hear Kamala Harris say it. If you don't have the mental capacity to logistically put that together in your head, that this woman or anybody else in the administration said, we don't care what your parents say. If you want to do it, you do it, and we'll take you right away from your parents. We'll do it. I'm not even going to ask you to find the proof on that. That's so incredibly stupid that anybody could believe that. That's why I'm mad. That's why I'm angry. If you wanted to vote for Donald Trump, if this was all political policy, fine, great. And some of you did. Some of you did it on the economy, despite the economy being the number one economy in the world, despite having the best economy in this country that we've had in the last 50 years. It might even be 60 years. That's not me saying it. That is, again, it's a fact. Facts don't matter anymore. Decriminalizing border crossings. Again, that's another thing. They've genius. They've got people thinking that, first of all, they come up with the term open border. So what does open border mean? Open border means, those immigrants trying to come in, why are you trying to stop them? We as Democrats, we want them to come in. They're part of gangs, they're rapists, and they're coming from prisons. We'll figure that out later. Thank you. Let them in, please. Again, logistically, for anybody to think that Democrats just let anybody in, doesn't matter. We'll sort it out later. And even if they do kill and murder people, we don't care. You know why? Because we don't care about the American people. We don't care about their safety. We don't care about their well-beings. We just care more about people that have it rougher. That's all. That's all we care about. So, yeah, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because Kamala Harris wants rapists and murderers to come in. Now, they don't care about the rapists and people who sexually assault women here in our country because they're being named into the administration. That's okay. So I guess if you're American, sexual assaulting Americans are fine. We could do that here in this country, but if you come from another country, that is something we will not stand for. Let's just go over a couple more because these are so ridiculously insane. Allowing illegal immigrants is another immigrant one, convicted of crimes to stay in America. Kind of already addressed that. Allowing abortion. Oh, another one. Allowing abortion up until the day of birth. Genius. I tell you, this propaganda machine, absolute genius. Genius. They did a great job. You can't stop it. You can't stop the machine. I have a rage against the machine. But my rage doesn't matter anymore because that's what people want to believe. They want to believe this nonsense that a woman has been carrying. She gets to her 9 months, and then she's sitting around. She's going, you know what? I really want to have this kid. You know what? We have laws now, and I want to vote for Kamala because she's going to continue to allow me to just say, you know what? Let's remove this kid. I've made the decision. After buying the crib, this is Pete Buttigieg responded this brilliantly. This woman has carried it to term. She has bought the crib, given it a name. From all accounts that I've heard, any woman that carries a baby to term already has the deepest connection with this child that seems almost unbreakable. You can't break this. But brings it to term. And then she says, I liked clubbing. I liked going out better. You know what? Let's get rid of it. Gonna get rid of the kid. Doc, hey, do me a favor. I'm gonna be in tomorrow morning. I know it's a 9-month kid. Just pull it out. Get rid of it. I don't care what you do with it. That's absurd. That's incredibly absurd. And it's offensive that anybody would think that that is the case. The only time, only time that this happens, only time, is when the mother's life is at stake. When the child's life is at stake. That's the only time this happens. It's even more rare than a transgender person walking into your bathroom. I mean, it literally almost never happens. So when they ask the question to the Democrats, do you approve and do you support 9th-month abortions? They do it as a trick question. And quite frankly, if I'm running for office, I'm saying, yeah, I do. But let me explain why. Let me explain in the almost no cases as to why I do. And then I'd also turn it around on them, kind of with the gun thing. So you keep saying, well, we give up one little thing on the gun thing. You know what that leads to? Getting rid of all guns. So if that's the case, if we get rid of one thing on abortion, doesn't that mean we're leading to a point where we're getting rid of it all? That's your logic. That's what you guys say about gun laws. So if it's the same with gun laws, of course, to them, it's not going to be. Even though the reason why Most logistical people want to have laws, sensible laws about guns, is to make sure children are not dying. I mean, what am I missing here? I'm missing something, right? I'm missing something. I don't know what's going on, but clearly I'm missing something. Last thing I want to show, this is going to bother a lot of people, I know. But I want to show this map of what would happen if only certain demographics were to vote. If only certain people could vote. So let's go over this map here. I hope you can see this. This is Midwest Sandernista posted this. I don't know if the Sandernista herself came up with this, but she came up with different maps, or she at least posted it, different maps as to what would happen if certain electorates voted. The first one here is if there was 100% turnout, which means if every voter could vote. Kamala Harris would win 51% of the vote, and she would have 319 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 219. Okay, let's go down to the next one. This one would be if only white people voted, just white people, just like me, white guy like me. 212 electoral votes to Kamala Harris, 326 electoral votes to Donald Trump. Kamala Harris would only win 43% of the vote, where Donald Trump would win 55% of the vote. So if it was just me and my people, that's what you call them. That's what would happen. He would have won an even. Now that would have been more of a mandate. If you would have wanted to call it a mandate, you could call that a mandate. So let's say if it was only non-educated white people, if only non-educated white people, this is the landslide that they could have voted, or they could have bragged about. 36% of people would have voted for Kamala Harris, 62% for Donald Trump. You could see he wins with a huge victory, not just in the popular vote, but the electoral vote. Here's where it gets interesting too. If only college-educated whites could vote. Well, if only college-educated whites could vote, Kamala Harris wins with 53% of the vote, as opposed to 44% of the vote. She wins with 294 electoral votes. If only people of color could vote. Obviously, we talk about landslides. 73% would have voted for Kamala Harris. 24% would have voted for Donald Trump. So there kind of goes the theory that black people were starting to migrate to Donald Trump. Maybe he picked up a few, but more black people and people of color voted for the Democrats, just like they always do, than any other people in the electorate. Now, I don't even want to get into the discussion where people say, "What has Democrats ever done for the black people?" And what are they? It's not a discussion I want to get, because we talked about this on the show, and maybe we'll get into the discussion when Lana's on the show. But or if you want to talk about it in the comments, we can. But here's if only black people could vote. You could see, obviously, it'd be the biggest landslide in American history, where 89% of the electorate would have voted for Kamala Harris, where only 9% for Donald Trump. And if only Hispanic or Latino people could vote, same thing, 60% with Kamala Harris and 37% for Donald Trump, her winning another landslide in the electoral college. And finally, if only Asian people can vote, another blowout win for Kamala Harris. So you get the picture at this point. I found that very interesting. I don't know what your comments or your thoughts are on that, but that was a pretty interesting map.